This is from the Wednesday Wall Street Journal. Yes, I am an old man. I still read the daily newspaper. And the headline is, Soccer Dream Drove Airport Tragedy. You can see that right on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. And this is the story of 17-year-old Zaki Anwari. And I may be mispronouncing his name, Anwari. If I'm mispronouncing his name, I apologize. He's a 17-year-old soccer star from Afghanistan. When he heard that the Taliban were taking over in Kabul, this is a kid who was born after 9/11. He believed that he would never be able to play soccer again. And a lot of you have seen the footage of what happened, but this 17-year-old kid was so convinced that the Taliban was going to keep him from being able to ever play soccer again and to have basic freedoms that he decided to try to hold on to an American jet that was taking off. A lot of you have seen it, a 140-ton U.S. Air Force transport plane, the C-17 Globemaster III. He held on to the side of it and tried to flee Afghanistan. We talk a lot. Unfortunately, in this country, there are a lot of people who revel in talking about how awful America is, in denigrating our history, in calling this country racist, unfair, in making the argument that America is an awful place. I just want you to think about, as you see all of those people in Afghanistan, desperate, like this 17-year-old kid, Zaki Anwari, to try to get to America, to take for granted, how many of us do, all of the freedoms that we have that come with living in the best country in the history of the world. We are imperfect. But the 13 soldiers who died trying to protect all sorts of innocent civilians in Afghanistan, all of the people who recognize and look at the history of the world know that America is the greatest source of freedom that has ever existed in the history of this world. And I just want to tell you that when you actually look at what sacrifices people are willing to make, this kid was willing to give his life to try to have basic American freedoms. He held on to a side of an airplane in the hope that he was going to be able to hold on there in the landing gear all the way to wherever that plane went. He was so desperate for freedom that he was willing to risk his life. And so many of us in America, as we do every single day, neglect to thank those who defend our freedom and neglect to understand how fortunate we all are. So as you roll into the weekend, I want you to think about that 17-year-old who was so desperate for American-style freedoms that he was willing to try and hold on to the side of an airplane, that he was willing to try to fold himself up into a landing gear and hang on for dear life. He fell thousands of feet to his death rather than stay behind and be ruled by the Taliban. I just want you to think about what others are willing to sacrifice to have a moment of freedom that many of us take for granted every single day. And that's why I'm so disappointed in Joe Biden.